Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the Training Ground, which is an insight into employability support and strategies during the pandemic. And today I have the pleasure of introducing Sophie Parris from Stewart's Law. How are you today, Sophie?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, so it's a pleasure. And firstly, how have things been for you during this time? Obviously challenging for many. What's it been like for you where you are?
It's been not necessarily difficult, but just obviously a really big change. We went from working in the office 5 days a week to obviously working from home 5 days a week. I'm in the office today, but this is the first day I've been in since March. So really just getting used to a completely new way of working. Yeah. Also, because I'm training at the moment, I do 6 monthly seats in different departments at Stewart's. So when I left in March, I was in a different department. So I've had to move department, obviously not physically, but with a new team, new work. So it's been challenging in that respect, but I'm working for a really nice team, and it's been good.
Fantastic, brilliant. Well, look, one of the things we were talking about today is around enhancing your CV. And obviously you've been on a bit of a journey at the start of your career. And can you tell us a little bit around sort of your journey first off, and maybe some of the things that you had to do in relation to your CV to help it stand out?
Yeah, so when you're applying or when you're starting your law career, you obviously do your law degree at university or another degree, and then you have to do a professional skills course, the LPC, legal practice course, or a different course if you've done a different degree.
Yeah.
Then once you've done that, you can obviously start working in the legal sector. You then apply for training contracts. The process of getting a training contract is notoriously difficult. There's a huge amount of people that want them, and there's limited spaces across the board at most firms. So I can't count how many I've applied for. You have to send out a lot of applications. So I've had to really tailor my CV. And when I look back at the first CV that I sent for my first application, I sort of think to myself, yeah, I'm not surprised I didn't get the job.
What kind of things then stood out for you when you say you look back? Because it sounds like you've definitely had loads and loads of changes to your CV and updating. So what stood out as the main things that you think have changed?
I think for me, I'm somebody who sort of focuses on the way that I write things. I want it to sound good, which is obviously really important. But I think to begin with, I was focusing too much on making things sound good and not actually putting in enough information about my skills and my experience, and sort of making sure that I'm really hitting the right note in that regard. And I think that's something that I've really learned, is that although the way you've written it needs to be, it needs to be grammatically correct. You need to make sure you've got no spelling mistakes, but actually the content is what's the most important thing.
Brilliant. And just on that, in terms of the content, have you ever had any feedback as to certain things that really stood out from your CV at all?
I think in terms of, since I've updated it in my recent round of applications and obviously getting my job now, is really just the way that I show my skills. It doesn't necessarily, it's not continuous in the way that I write it, but instead of writing, when you're talking about your experience, instead of writing a paragraph about the job that you did at Sainsbury's, using bullet points, being really clear and concise, these are the skills that I've learned. This is how I can say that I'm a good team player, or I've got a good work ethic because I've done these things. I think that's the most positive feedback I've had. Yeah.
And I think that's great because, some people might have unrelated experiences, and it's how do you really draw out those key aspects, like you said, work ethic, for example, from a job that might seem to be unrelated, but actually are transferable skills. Could you highlight any transferable skills that you, maybe from jobs that you'd had previously or experiences you've had previously, that maybe have helped you within your current role as a trainee solicitor?
Yeah, so I think I really do believe that you learn something from every job that you do, whether you think it's relevant to the job you're applying for. There's something that you've learned from that. So I think you just really need to think about the skills that you need to show in order to do the job that you're applying for. Yeah. And think about your experience and how you can show that. So, for example, when I was at university, I had pub jobs, I had restaurant jobs, I worked in Sainsbury's for quite a while. And obviously I'm applying for legal jobs, so I couldn't really think how they were relevant. But actually, when you think about it, I was working unsociable hours in pubs, I was being flexible, I was working in a team. If you're working in a busy pub on a Saturday night, you're working in a high pressured environment. So just thinking about them from from a different point of view. And there's always something that you can say. You'll have learned something from everything that you've done. So I don't think that any job shouldn't be included because you don't think it's relevant. And also showing that you've done a variety of things just proves that you've got a good work ethic.
Fantastic. And that's a great point. I think everyone should take as a top tip, especially you sort of seeing where you've come from, like you said, working in pubs and working in Sainsbury's, long hours, but then you can definitely translate that in now the legal sector where you are. One of the things that you tend to find nowadays asked a lot is around volunteering. Have you had any volunteering experience yourself?
So I think it's really important that you've done volunteering. And I think most people are looking for that now, regardless of what jobs you're doing, especially in the legal sector. I think they expect to see it on your CV. Through university and then doing my professional skills course, and then also while I've been at Stewart's, I've done various things. So things that have been organised through my college or through my university. So, for example, offering free legal advice on helplines, and then also things I've organised myself. So I volunteer for Walk the Walk, which is a charity walk that they do in aid of breast cancer every year, and things like that. But I do think that, because I've been in the same position where I think I got to a point where I was thinking I need to put something on my CV. I need to have done something in terms of volunteering, because if you're applying with, everyone's qualified to the same level in terms of your competitors for these roles. You need something that makes you stand out. But equally, you need to do something which you're passionate about and you can speak passionately about, because otherwise you just look completely disingenuous. You're just doing it on your CV. So there's a fine balance.
I would agree with that. Definitely doing something you're passionate about, because it probably will come across at the interview, and you don't want to almost sell something that's not of you within your CV. That's probably the worst thing to do, and you really want to stay away from that.
Exactly.
And in terms of sort of the volunteering, and you said you've had different aspects of volunteering. Can you highlight some of the things that you've taken from your experiences of volunteering, which you've managed to, I guess, draw out onto your CV?
So I think one of the main things that you can take from any type of volunteering is teamwork, because you're essentially turning up on the day whatever you're doing with a new group of people. So I think that's really, really important. I think it shows, obviously, in terms of you as a person, it's a good characteristic to show that you're willing to help others and you're willing to give your time to other people. But also, I think for me personally, it was a real confidence thing, having to turn up and speak to people that you don't know, lead a team or become part of a team of people that you don't know. It really, really helps your self-confidence. So even if you're not doing it for the purpose of being able to write it on your CV, to actually be able to do it, the skills that you learn are really important, I think, in terms of, applying for jobs, even when it comes to going to an interview, increasing your self-confidence and just learning how to speak to people, really.
I think that is great, especially what you said about the self-confidence, because, it's once you get to that interview stage, you've got to be able to have the confidence to speak about, your experiences, to meet different people, new people, at an interview. And, usually they say it's sort of the first 10 seconds that the recruiter makes the decision. So if the more and more experience you have of that, like you said, through volunteering, which is a free experience that you can have, the better it is for you as a candidate. So looking more specifically in the CVs, are there any key words that you say to use, or any cliche, and on the other side, any cliches to avoid?
I think in terms of things to use, I think it's really good if you can look, if they give a job description or in the advert for the job that you're applying for, the role that they want, they'll say, we want somebody who can do these things. I think it's really important that you try and reflect that in your CV. Whether you use the word team player or teamwork, it doesn't matter, as long as you can show that you can do those things. I think in terms of cliche, there is probably one that I would say don't use, which is being perfectionist. I think that's just something I would avoid, because I think try and, especially, for example, if you're going into an interview as well and they say, what's something that you're not so good at, and people say, I just am a perfectionist, I work, I put too much into things. I think that's probably something I would avoid personally. But I guess the cliche terms like, I'm a good communicator, I'm a team player, I'm hardworking, I actually think it's fine to use those things as long as you have got the evidence to back it up. You don't want to just say, I'm hardworking, I've got a good work ethic, I'm a team player, and then leave it at that. You need to be able to show through your experience that actually you are those things.
I'd agree, definitely. And like you said, if you can back that up, that's crucial. So for anyone who's putting their CV together, whatever if you're putting teamwork on there, which probably most people have some form of teamwork experience, make sure you understand what that is, what your role was, and how you can explain it to those who are recruiting.
Exactly. And I think that was one of the mistakes I used to make. I used to say that I was all of these things.
Yeah.
And I didn't give any evidence of it, but the evidence was there. I had been a team player, I had led a team, but I just needed to sort of think more closely about the work that I'd done and the experiences that I'd had, and made sure I'd drawn that out, because otherwise anybody can say
yeah.
they're a great leader, but you need the evidence to back it up.
Fantastic. And then in terms of the structure of a CV, you've probably seen I've seen many different CVs. There might be someone's face on there to make it more personal. There might be different colors, for example. Headings are highlighted in different colors. What would you say in terms of a structure or some things that help a CV to stand out at face value?
I think it's so difficult because it obviously depends on the job you're applying for. If you're going into a creative industry and you're working in marketing or illustration or something creative, you want to be able to show your skills. And I've seen amazing CVs from people who do those kind of jobs. Where they've hand illustrated their picture and they've done really cool things. But obviously, from my experience, because I'm working in the legal sector, I think if you're applying for jobs like that, it obviously needs to be more formal and probably just quite plain, really, in terms of the actual look of the CV. I think in terms of the structure, I personally have a personal statement on my CV, so sort of 3 lines underneath my name, which just says, this is my experience, this is what I'm applying for, this is my current role, which I think is really important, because I think it just, the person who's reading your CV is probably reading 100 more CVs, and you just want to put something on the first page near the top of the page that grabs their attention and makes them want to read on. And then really just, I always put my education first, then my employment history. I think if you're applying for a job where you can have done relevant work experience, I separate my work experience into legal work experience and non-legal work experience. And think about, if someone's only going to be spending 2 or 3 minutes reading it, what's the most important things that you want them to know about you at the beginning? So, and just thinking about that, really.
Brilliant. And then with that, would you also add things like figures? So, for example, if someone's had to manage a budget, for example, no matter how big or small, would you have that included as well?
That's not something I've had to include. Potentially, yes. Anything really, I would add figures if I thought that by adding that I was really showing my skills and that would enhance what I was saying. I think a CV is obviously really personal, and your best attributes and your best, the experiences you've had that are the best. So yeah, I would if I thought it was relevant.
Fantastic. Well, look, there is so much information there that you've obviously drawn out in regards to CVs and, from your experience already, which is great. Is there maybe a top tip or top 3 tips that you can think about that you would let the listeners take away?
I think my top 3 tips would be volunteering. Make sure you do some volunteering. As I've said, I think it's just so important. So make sure you do that to enhance. That really does enhance your CV. It just adds something else. As I said, if there's so many people applying for one job and you've done some volunteering that you can go to an interview and speak really passionately about, I think it just puts you above the other people who maybe haven't got that on their CV. I think really highlighting your skills, really just don't worry too much about making it sound really nice, and it obviously needs to read well, but really think about the skills that they're going to be looking for, and think about your experience, even if it's not work experience, even if it's you're at university or at school and you've worked in a team to do a presentation, there's always something that you can speak about. So just really think about that. And also, I think just don't make it too long. Depending on obviously the stage of your career you're at, mine runs to 2 pages, but I would never make it more than 2 pages, because I just think you just want somebody to read it, and I think if it's really long, they're probably going to give up halfway through, and it just needs a snapshot, really.
Fantastic. Sophie, that is excellent, and everyone who's able to listen in and watch the YouTube version of this, take those 3 points, and especially the things that you've mentioned around, especially self-confidence and volunteering, I think really has come across. So really go out there and encourage yourself through volunteering and getting those experiences in a safe way, whether it be online or you're able to do a little bit practically. Sophie, thank you very much for your time, and hope you have a good rest of the day with the sunshine.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Take care for now. Bye.
Bye.